Have you ever heard a name in the NFL draft and think, wait, that guy is going in the top 10? For a lot of people, that's Jalon Walker this year. Some people think he's a top 10 talent. Others, they wouldn't even take him in the first round at all. So what gives? Today, we're breaking down not just where Walker should go, but how scouts and teams actually evaluate draft prospects. After this video, you'll be able to watch a player and break him down like a real NFL draft analyst. My name is Zach, this is the Sports Corner at Choose Adventure Media, and let's get into it. Alright, the first category we look at when evaluating any NFL draft prospect is production. That's going to be their raw stats, stuff like tackles, sacks, forced fumbles, but also the more advanced metrics like pass rush win rate or defensive impact plays over expected. Now, Jalon Walker is known for his pass rushing ability, so a natural starting place is sacks. He had 5 as a sophomore and 6.5 as a junior this past season at Georgia. Not eye-popping numbers at first glance, but there's some really important context here. First, Georgia's head coach Kirby Smart loves rotating guys constantly on defense. It's part of their system. It keeps players fresh, and it gets young guys lots of reps, so by the time they're a junior and a senior, they already have a ton of experience. So Walker wasn't on the field full-time like some other top pass rushers like Abdul Carter or James Pierce Jr. Second, he wasn't just rushing off the edge. He also played as an off-ball linebacker, meaning he would also drop into coverage or play from a more traditional linebacker position behind the defensive line versus on it. That's a ton of responsibility, not just physically, but intellectually as well. So this is why I value production relatively low, because it requires you to look at the context, not just the raw numbers as a lot of people love to do. According to Pro Football Focus, PFF, in 2024, he had a pass rush win rate of 18.5%, which is almost top 10 in the country this past season. And he only had 195 pass rush reps. To turn that into 6.5 sacks is incredibly efficient. Just for comparison, Abdul Carter had a pass rush win rate of 22.6%, and he's largely considered the #1 overall prospect in the entire class. If I had to grade his production, I would give it a B+ based on context. The pass rush win rate is elite, and if he maybe played in a different system and had the opportunity to show that over more snaps, I think it would move that grade up. In short, he has great production efficiency, just not enough reps. Next up is measurables. That's going to be things like height, weight, 40 time, and other combine metrics. And this is where Jalon Walker's stock gets a little tricky. He measured in at 6'1", 243 pounds at the NFL Combine in February. That's not horrible, but it's also not great. That puts him around the 35th percentile for height and 62nd percentile for weight among linebackers. So the question becomes, where does he fit in the NFL? He's not big enough to be a full-time edge, but he hasn't proven to be a lockdown off-ball linebacker either. 10 years ago, this kind of tweener build was labeled as versatile. Today, it's more of a red flag. Teams want defined roles. So far, his most popular NFL comparison is to Frankie Louvu for the Washington Commanders. Louvu is also a linebacker who plays as a pass rush specialist. In short, the NFL wants to put people into boxes no matter how niche, which is understandable. If you were going to pay a 21-year-old man $15 to $20 million, you would want to have a pretty concrete defined role for them and their projection. Now, Walker didn't test at the Combine or his pro day, but it's been reported that he runs a 4.5 second 40-yard dash. If that's true, that would put him in the 90th percentile for linebacker speed, which is obviously really, really fast. But let's take this with a grain of salt. Pro day numbers and reported times can be inflated. Some teams rely less on 40 times and more on game speed, like the Minnesota Vikings very famously have a very forward-looking GM who uses GPS data from game film. It's all about how fast a guy plays on the football field, not just how fast he runs in a straight line, which highlights one of the shortcomings of not taking measurables with a grain of salt. One metric I like to use is Relative Athletic Score, or RAS. It gives you a score out of 10 based on how athletic a player is compared to others at his position. I like using this score just as a general idea of a player's athleticism. Here you can see Indianapolis Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson and Philadelphia Eagles defensive tackle Jordan Davis both had perfect 10 out of 10 RAS scores, proving all positions can have a perfect RAS, not just what you would expect in probably a wide receiver or a running back. I also wanted to include Frankie Louvu's RAS of 3.91 to prove that RAS isn't everything. You can have a horrible RAS and still be a very successful player. Unfortunately, without full testing data, Walker doesn't have an official RAS. But, based on what we know, it'd likely be great, not elite, due to accounting for the middle-of-the-road height and weight. I can't really give him a fair grade on measurables since we don't have any data besides height and weight. Finally, the most important piece of the puzzle, tape. How a player plays on the field. And this, personally, is the metric that I use the most when I'm evaluating a player. This is where Jalon Walker shines. That alleged 4.5 speed definitely shows up on film. He explodes off the snap, whether he's coming off the edge or chasing down plays in space. He's also the son of a coach, and it shows. His football IQ is off the charts. He reads plays incredibly well and reacts quickly, always seeming to be in the right place at the right time. But when it comes to pass coverage, he's average. Not great, not horrible. His instincts just aren't quite there yet to be considered elite in pass coverage, but he's definitely not a liability. Now, as a pass rusher, he's dangerous. Just ask Texas left tackle Kelvin Banks Jr., who's also projected to be a first-round talent in this year's draft, what it's like to try to block Jalon Walker. I think he's still having flashbacks. Despite being undersized, Walker has power. He can convert speed to power and collapse the pocket, which is something you really want to see whenever you're analyzing pass rushers. He's also a solid run defender from the linebacker spot, but when he's lined up on the edge, he sometimes gets swallowed up in the run game. Overall, I think he deserves an A or an A+ grade for his tape. It's incredible, his athleticism shows up, and his incredibly high football IQ. So, now that you know how to evaluate a draft prospect using production, measurables, and tape, here's the real secret. Different teams, different scouts, and different analysts all value these categories very differently. Some teams don't care about size or testing, they trust the tape. Others fall in love with traits, even if the production isn't necessarily there. Personally, I think tape is king. Measurables and stats are helpful, but tape shows how a guy really plays. The good, the bad, and everything in between. I think measurables should always be taken with a grain of salt. Does a player actually play that fast or that strong? Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas in this year's NFL draft class, shocked everyone by running a 4.29 second 40-yard dash time, which is one of the fastest 40 times ever recorded at the NFL Combine. I've watched a lot of his tape and I watched a lot of him this past year at Texas. He certainly is fast. I don't know if he necessarily plays that fast though. I also think production should be taken with a grain of salt as well. What conference did they play in? That could make their stats more or less valuable. Also, what scheme did they play in? Did that hinder or inflate their stats? At the end of the day, tape never lies. That includes not just the video of a player during a play, but how he responds to adversity, how he responds to bad calls from the refs, and how he handles success. As for Jalon Walker, I've got him as a top 12 to top 20 player in this year's draft, but only for the right fit. I don't see him as a full-time edge, and he's not quite ready yet to be a full-time off-ball linebacker either. But on early downs, he can certainly play linebacker. And on third down, let him pin his ears back and hunt the quarterback. And in today's NFL, a disruptive pass rusher like that is absolutely worth taking a swing on. From what I'm hearing, the NFL is very high on Jalon Walker, and all reports indicate people would be shocked if he was available past number 15 to the Atlanta Falcons, with the Carolina Panthers at 8 almost guaranteed to take him if he's still available. So what do you think? Where should Jalon Walker be drafted? And how do you personally weigh production, measurables, and tape? Drop a comment and let me know. If you love deep dives like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on those post notifications. I'm Zach. This is the Sports Corner at Choose Adventure Media, and I'll see you in the next video.